Since we continue thinking about two separate development teams working on separate parts of this project, we also must make sure that the payroll team uses only the interfaces and not references to the employee classes. So once again in the project tree, I'm going to right-click employee.java file and select refactor and extract interface, which brings up this dialog box. Similar to payroll class, I'm going to name my interface iEmployee, and then based on the needs of the payroll class, we're going to use compute pay and add it to this new interface. Then also get name for the employee, get paycheck, and set paycheck. And we're going to leave alone the implements clonable and cloning of the object, as well as the equals method, which is an override of the method that was originally defined in the object class. So here I have these selections of 4 methods, and I'm just going to say refactor. So this is our second interface. I'm going to get rid of these comments and temporarily move it to another side. And now let's take a look at the employee class from where we extracted this interface. Interestingly, notice how compute pay, which was originally declared as an abstract method inside class employee, got pulled from the employee class and now was put in the interface, which is a great strategy for us to keep the interfaces and implementations clean. So let's start using the new interface, and in the payroll class we're going to replace every occurrence of employee with the new interface. So again, Control H, employee, replace it with iInterface, the name of the interface. So I'm just going to search for this. From the beginning of the file, just click Next, and whenever it comes up, I'm just going to replace. So replace here, replace, replace, and replace. Just keep replacing. I'm going to save the changes and do the same thing in our payroll interface. The same type of change. We replace the employee with its interface, search Next, and then replace, replace, and replace. And we're going to do the same changes in the paycheck class. Because of the ways of paycheck creation, management, printing in the payroll class, I'm assuming that paycheck class belongs to the payroll processing team of developers. So we're switching from employee to employee interface references. I'm just going to look for the next and replace all occurrences in this file. Okay, I'm going to save this change, and the next thing to look at is the main file. Array list of employees is shared by both sides of our system, so of course we're going to change this to also use the iEmployee type of reference. So let's save all the changes and try building it just to verify how things look like after the second interface in the system. So I'm just going to say clean and build. What gets broken in our main method is cloning. So the reason for this is that because ArrayList is now storing the interface references. Unlike any class references, an interface does not derive from the object class. So the methods like clone are no longer accessible like this anymore. To make things work, the cloning needs to be doing a little bit more casting. So let's jump to the code that does the cloning. And instead we'll probably just take it a little bit apart. So first of all, I can try to extract a reference to full-time employee. Then what I can do is that I can create a clone of full-time employee. And then I can go directly to our array list and just add this new full-time employee to the list. And so this code looks okay. So I'll just try the same for the part-time employee, the same type of logic. Just basically extract the part-time employee from the collection, then clone, and then add it back, but this time it's a cloned object. So this looks better. I'm going to remove the old code and save all of my changes. Now try a clean build again. So this looks good. Let's try testing. All right, and everything looks good. So let's take a look at these two new interfaces, iEmployee that we added, and also iPayroll. This demo project shows how we can stop using implementation classes and instead program significant parts of our system against the interfaces. This approach provides incredible flexibility to the system design. Like I described earlier, even two different organizations could continue working on the employee management and the payroll processing rather independently. If they need to test an employee or a payroll internally, they can still use an older version of the class, or they can write their own temporary implementation with the code sufficient to test the interfaces. Another similar example would be like in a video game. We have the entire world scene configuration, so we can have a city landscape. Okay, so there's some sort of background visible. We have the streets, right? So we have also pedestrians visible here. We can have cars on the street. We can have more buildings in this landscape everywhere. Each component in the video game logically is a separate object. So there isn't much in common between these objects. They are not part of the same inheritance structure, just totally separate objects. Cars and pedestrians can move around, and the buildings are stationary, but all objects are independent of one another and internally organized very differently. So next thing that we want to add here is a weather effect, right? So we can have a sunshine, or we can have clouds, and we can have rain or snow, and so forth. So we could add new class to the system called weather broadcast, and also add new interface, for example, weather or iWeather. And there, inside the iWeather interface, we could have abstract methods such as on rain, on snow, on sunshine, on cloudy day, and have each type of the scenery object, like buildings, like cars and pedestrians. They all can implement this weather interface and decide how they would react to the weather updates in these methods, on rain, on snow, on sunshine, on cloudy day. And using such interface makes a very elegant way to propagate weather updates to the objects that are interested in being notified about the weather changes.